Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. First of all, Happy New Year. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. Gonna jump right into the topics for this week's video. We're gonna look back at 2023. We do have the sales results for the year, so we can look at how that year shaped up for Vancouver real estate. And then we're also gonna look forward into 2024, what I expect to see happen, not only in Q1, but as we head throughout the year. Real quick, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you and you wanted to chat with me one-on-one, you can book me for a call in the Calendly link below. But regardless, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. All right, the best way that I can describe what happened in Vancouver real estate in 2023 was a year of resilience. We saw just how strong the Vancouver real estate market is from a pricing perspective. If we look at some of the annual numbers from last year, we had a year where it started off very, very low when it came to total number of units available, housing inventory extremely low, but grew throughout the year. We finished off the year in terms of active properties on the market in December, right at our 10-year average. Earlier on in the year, we were very low on inventory, and in fact, that's when we saw a lot of price gains in the market. So it just gives credence to the fact that when you have low supply of a product, pricing is going to go up. The reason I say, the resiliency of the Vancouver real estate market, we had lending rates that were some of the highest we've seen in over a decade. We had interest rates or mortgage rates in the 6s, stress tests happening in the 8s as well. Yet somehow by the end of the year, when we looked at benchmark pricing of all property types, for the most part up around 5%. So in a year that would be considered a negative or a down year, we actually still saw price growth in the market. And it just goes to show you that, again, how resilient the Vancouver real estate market is. We saw people doing things a little bit differently when it came to securing mortgages. Myself personally in my business, I did a lot more transactions where buyers had co-signers on the mortgage, family members. I have said it before, but I think it was very prominent in the last year. The bank of mom and dad coming through for certain people that, had that opportunity to be able to receive that from family members, but bank of mom and dad helping with down payments. Of course, they are the easiest lenders to satisfy out there. But, a lot more transactions as well where a lot more money was put down as well. There were not as many 10, 15% down payments, at least in my world, 25, 30, sometimes 50%. So it just goes to show you with real estate, it's very tough to quantify solely on an investment level. We always have to keep in mind that people are making moves for various reasons, and these are obviously very strong reasons for a lot of people. So as much as borrowing rates and lending rates were extremely high, there were a certain chunk of buyers out there that had to make their moves, and they did that. When it comes to price growth, again, much of that was experienced in the first half of the year when we had lower inventory. But when it comes to price growth in the market, the thing to keep in mind is one of the themes of 2023 is that many sellers were holding out for older prices, peak prices. And I've talked about that a lot on the channel, but ultimately what ends up happening is if you have less sellers than you normally do, and the majority of these sellers are holding out for peak pricing, when properties do transact, they are going to transact at higher prices. So what we saw last year is the quality pieces of inventory, the homes that were very well kept, show ready, these ones still transacted, and I think sellers did very well to achieve the prices that they did last year. So again, everyone holding out for higher prices. Yes, some properties were stale, ended up sitting on the market, but the homes that did transact, they transacted at higher levels. Again, approximately 5% benchmark pricing growth in a down year with crazy high lending fees. It just, again, goes to show the strength of the Vancouver real estate market. So I want to switch gears a bit and look forward into 2024. What can we expect? I did mention how recently around the holiday season and early this month, The buyer activity when it comes to consultations, meetings with new clients, also sellers getting market assessments. There's a lot of activity happening right now. I know for myself, my busiest period of the year has been in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And there's definitely a large sense of optimism as we head into Q1. Now, what we've seen is mortgage rates have come down now. And so what ultimately ends up happening is buyers, they lock in their pre-approvals, right? So you lock in a pre-approval, you get it at a lower rate than you would have a couple months ago. And that rate is held for you for, it really depends on the scenario, but say 2, 3, or 4 months. So ultimately what buyers need to do then is they need to close on the property to take advantage of that rate within that time window. Now, obviously, if rates continue to come down and a buyer is unable to close within that time window, they can readjust the rate downwards. It doesn't hurt them. But in the scenario where rates increase again, which is possible, and I'm talking mortgage rates, which is possible, then they don't get the benefit of that locked in rate. So I truly believe, and I'm feeling it in my world, that Q1 is going to be very busy. January, February, March, a lot of activities happening. I believe I have 2 or 3 homes under contract already that we are working on. So it's busy. My fear, so I'll get to my fear in a sec, but if we look at the interest rate path, what are people expecting when it comes to interest rates? Every single headline you read now talks about rate cuts. There's a lot of positivity in the market, sentiment-wise, when it comes to interest rates. I think every single major bank is expecting cuts, but the majority are also expecting cuts to get into the 2 to 3% range by 2025. So basically, interest rates cut in half by 2025. You see the headlines. This is not, in my opinion, a great thing. I feel like we may be in a situation of over-optimism. And that's where my fear is that if we jump out of the gate here, everyone's gung-ho, everyone's hungry to transact. And when there's optimism in the market, when sentiment is good, people spend more money. And when people spend more money, inflation increases, right? And so that's still the barrier to rates coming down. Now, the Bank of Canada did say they are going to bring rates down regardless of where they're at for inflation. They're not necessarily waiting to hit the 2% target. But if we have a Q1 where people are back optimistic, spending money, the market starts heading in an upwards direction again, I think the rate cuts that everyone's talking about, those could get pushed out to later on. So rate cuts, they are not a guarantee to happen by the middle of this year. Really depends on how activity across the entire economy, how activity ends up being in Q1. So that's something to watch. I do feel that there is maybe some over optimism out there in the market, something to kind of watch out for. I think, I hate doing predictions or anything along those lines, but when I look at where we're going to go from a supply perspective this year, I do think we're going to have increased housing supply, especially in specific areas. Condos in downtown Vancouver, already a high amount of supply. I think that's going to grow as well. So I think we're going to see some growth in supply that might be offset though by lower mortgage rates and more buyers coming into the market. So it's going to be that balancing act between supply and demand. From a pricing perspective, I don't see a way that prices don't grow, at least modestly this year. So I'm going to expect around 4 to 6% growth, but it's very neighborhood dependent, property dependent. I look at, for example, certain markets out there, North Vancouver, probably the most resilient market out there in the lower mainland. They've managed to weather pretty much any storm thrown at them over the last few years. So it really depends on the areas that are land challenged, like North Vancouver, don't have a ton of high-rise development, not a ton of supply. So, North Vancouver tends to hold its value very well. In the Fraser Valley, I could see further price declines because, again, that was, Fraser Valley was one of the areas where prices increased significantly. Places like Langley, even Abbotsford, detached homes, we've already been seeing them come down. I've been watching Maple Ridge. and detached homes have been coming down as well. We're also going to see in 2024 what's going to happen in terms of all of these new changes by the BC provincial government. Not necessarily that they're going to be implemented and enacted, but like we talked about, when it comes to sentiment, when it comes to pricing properties, you see a lot of listings already of detached homes with the headline multiplex potential. Sometimes that'll be the first picture saying multiplex lot. So there's a lot of sentiment and buzz around some of these changes that the provincial government is putting forth. At the end of the day, are we going to see an increase in builds and an increase in housing starts? That typically has been trending downwards overall. Borrowing costs for developers, they remain fairly unchanged, right? So we're still seeing projects being put on hold. There was a development in Langley, townhome development. They've built out a few homes, but now that they are in receivership, so that developer is obviously struggling as well. So there's going to be more of this to come to light. But all this being said, is no matter all of the policies that are being put in place, federal government, here's $115 million towards new homes for Vancouver. How will that get implemented? Will it get used? Will homes get built? We have immigration targets that continue to go up, yet we see contractors here in BC shifting to other areas of Canada for work. So it becomes a chase for labor that can actually fulfill some of these lofty goals that both the federal government and the provincial government have for housing in Vancouver. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you did, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can learn from it as well. And if you enjoy this weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a future video. And lastly, if you're in the Vancouver area or the Fraser Valley and you want to talk to me about your real estate situation one-on-one, you can book me in the Calendly link below, or just send me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I'd love to chat with you one-on-one, but I want to thank you again for watching this week's video, and I look forward to seeing you in next week's video.